Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Tanya class, Tanya and You Chapter 25. Wow, we are up to chapter 25, and it's been a year, or I'm not sure how long we've been studying this for, a little less than a year. And chapter 25 kind of wraps things up. Chapter 26 already begins almost like a new idea. Chapter 25, what a powerful chapter to wrap up the idea that we began to discuss in chapter 18. Just to kind of recap a little bit. The Tanya, if you remember from the cover page, is based on a verse that Moshe Rabbeinu, said to the Jewish people before his passing. And he says, this is in Deuteronomy, he says the verse, Ki karev elecha hadavar me'od, that serving God, connecting with God, is close to you. It's near to you. Me'od, extremely close to you. It's extremely attainable. Beficha u'vilvavcha la'asoisai, your mouth, your heart, to do it. And the Tanya is basically here to explain, to teach us, how is it so close? Serving God seems to be so daunting. It seems to be so overwhelming sometimes. And here Moses says, it's easy. It's not a big deal. Well, how is that done? So, in the earlier chapters of the Tanya, after we explain, we build up the psyche of the person, that we have intellect, we have emotional powers, we have the godly soul, we have the animal soul. The Tanya basically tells us that how is it easy? Because we have to be emotionally invested in the service of Hashem. The same way we have to be emotionally invested in anything, relationships, in your job, right? If you are passionate and excited about your job, you'll be more successful at it, right? If you're a salesperson for something you couldn't care for, you won't be as successful if it's something that you do care for. So when it comes to serving God, you have to have an emotional attachment. And chapter 16 and 17, we spoke about the importance of being emotionally involved in serving God. As in the words of the Tanya, we talk about the love and the awe that we have to have for God. And then we said, if we are not able to fully develop this actual feeling, this emotional connection with Hashem, there has to be at least an emotional awareness of this love for God. And that's enough to say that Kikar Velech is close to you. That was first half of the time. And then in chapter 18, we began focusing on the word me'oid, that this service to God is extremely close to you. And the question was, wait, some of us are just not into that. To develop even an emotional awareness, which comes through contemplation, with meditation, it's just not me. I don't have the mind for it. I'm more of a superficial person, or I just don't know how to do it. I don't have the tools for it. I'm not there. I can't develop anything in the heart. So here the Tanya asks, so how is serving God, attaining this emotional connection with God, close to this type of person? And that is where in chapter 18 we begin to talk about, to develop this idea, where the Tanya introduces to us that we have an innate love for God. This connection, this bond that we have with God does not have to be developed. It's already there. It's already there. How do we know it's already there? Because when it comes to a crisis, when it comes to something major of denouncing our Judaism, our connection with God, it comes to the surface. And not just the religious rabbis, the extremists, the people who are, living a life of Judaism, but even the most far secular Jew who perhaps is even speaking against their Judaism. But even they when it comes to a decision, whether it's their life or their religion, their Judaism, their God, they will choose their God. Oh, it must be that there's something hidden within them. They have the little love for God. So it's there, it's within them. The question is, how do we bring this to the surface in our daily lives, right? How do we live this? How do we live this love? It's so close to you. Not only, God forbid, if you're being taken to to the gas chambers, and over there you're saying Shema Yisrael. We don't want that. We want to live in America. Today we're talking about July 4th. It's the time of our independence. We're living in a free country. We're living in America. We're, thank God, we're not talking about giving up our life for Judaism. We have our independence, right? So we have our independent mind that we were able to decide, you know what, it's July 4th, but instead of sleeping in, we're going to get up and we're going to study some Tanya together. That's July 4th. That's called true freedom. Freedom to choose. Not just freedom from, but freedom to. So the Tanya continues, chapter 19, 20, and etc., to talk about what exactly is this innate love that we have for God. It's the idea that we understand that we got a little philosophical, right? So every choice that we make is a choice between God and a space where God isn't. So anytime that we have even a small choice and we say, I'm going to choose what is good for me at this moment, ultimately what we're saying is that at this moment, I take precedence over God. So here in chapter 25, we kind of wrap this all up. How is it so close to God? How is it so close to each and every one of us in every moment of our life, every day? And he says you have to know there's like 2 or 3 very important points in chapter 25. First of all, we have to know that we have this love. We have to know that we have it. We have this love for God. It's like a parent-child relationship where sometimes the child is estranged from his father. They don't know that they are a parent-child relationship. The moment we know about it, sometimes you see these videos of whether it's an adopted child that grew up not knowing who their biological parents are, or whether it is people Holocaust survivors who haven't seen a sibling in 30, 40, 50 years. They don't even know of them. But the moment they know, they are told that this is my parent, this is my child, this is my sibling, there's like a rush of emotion that comes out, and it's like, wow, they embrace and they hug as if they've been living together for all these years. In other words, sometimes we just don't know about this innate love that we have for God. So the Tanya tells us in chapter 25, first of all, you have to know about it. You have this love. You have this connection with God. How do I know? Because at a crisis, it will come out. And therefore, this is proving to me that even when there's no crisis, it's there. That's point number 1. And point number 2 is that every moment, every decision that we make is really a decision between God and self. And when we choose self, it doesn't seem like we're separating ourselves from God. But it's like what we said in the last chapter, it's a delusional spirit. It's a delusion. We are fooling ourselves. And this is only a small decision. But ultimately, every decision that we make has to be, well, what does God want from me at this moment? It seems insignificant, but is it truly insignificant? We have to have that clarity in life. The smallest things sometimes is really where it's at. I was listening to a podcast a year ago, but really it struck me. This is a father father in the Chabad community in New York, who unfortunately lost his daughter to suicide. She took her life. Excuse me. His daughter took his life. And so he was being interviewed and speaking about his daughter, about his relationship with her, some of her struggles, some of her mental and emotional struggles that she had in her life. He was asked, he was asked, what do you miss most being with your daughter, right? If you're able to go back and say, I'm going to have one moment with my daughter, what would that be? And he said, I'd love to have one more chance to do homework with her. Homework with her. And first I was thinking, homework. I mean, I do homework with my kids. Do I love it? Is it the best part of my day? Oh, I can't wait. I can sit down, start figuring out the kids' homework, trying to remember from when I was a child. I mean, okay, we do it as parents, but when we don't have it, we look back and say, you know what? That small little relationship, the small little time together, that quality time that seemed to be insignificant at the moment, but sometimes that's where it is. That's where it is. Have the clarity of life in life to know what is important. Why am I living? Like the book, which I mentioned many times, Seven Confessions, I think it's called, of a nurse that was, I believe, in hospice or an old age home, a nursing home, and she would have these conversations with the elderly, and she would ask them, "What is your biggest regrets of life?" And no one said, "I didn't spend more time in the office." That wasn't from the top regrets in life. But one of the top regrets that people had is that they didn't live a life true to themselves. They didn't live a life based on what they wanted to live, but they lived a life based on what others expected of them, or what they thought would, allow others to gain respect of them, etc. We have to have clarity. The Tanya teaches us what is the real you as a Jew. Who am I and why do I live? It gives us that emotional stamina. It gives us that clarity that we have to have in life. Close to you. In general, Torah celebrates life. We celebrate life. We don't celebrate death. Unfortunately, some other religions celebrate death. We celebrate life. It says you should live by them, right? And therefore, we know that the law is that when it comes to a Torah law, a mitzvah, where it comes in the place of our life comes first, right? When someone is in need of medical care and it's Shabbos, we say, okay, Shabbos is put aside right now, and we do what we have to do. Anything that generally desecrates Shabbos, but if it's for a life, you're saving a life, comes first. And any other mitzvah, right? Life comes first, but ultimately, we're supposed to live as Jews, not die as Jews. Yeah, we have the 3 cardinal sins that are exception to the rule. Okay. But at the same time, what do we say? That when push comes to shove, certain times, especially the 3 cardinal sins, we have to be willing to die for our Judaism. As historically, many Jews have given up their lives for their Judaism. Not because we celebrate death, and not because we are hoping and waiting for the moment that we will give up our lives for our Judaism. We don't want that. We want to live. We want to live as a Jew, not die as a Jew. But the Tanya tells us that the idea of giving up our life for Judaism gives us the clarity of who we truly are. What are you willing to give up your life for? Knowing that a life, something that you're willing to die for, then that is something that's a life worth living because you know what's most important. If you're willing to give up your life for it, it means that even when you're not giving up your life, there's meaning to your life because you have an ideal, you have a mission, you have a purpose that is so dear to you. It's more dear than life itself. So that's what Tanya says. We've been speaking about that in a moment of crisis that we're willing to give up our life. Great. We don't want that moment of crisis, but we want that this should give us clarity to know that now my little decision, I'm going to a restaurant, and is this kosher? Is it not kosher? It looks like it's kosher. Maybe it's kosher. I can kind of overlook it. No one's going to know. It's a small little sin. I'm feeling very lazy this morning. I'm feeling heavy. I'm not interested in doing my morning prayer. I can say, you know what? I did it yesterday. I'll do it tomorrow. Today, God, July 4th, we're on vacation. What's the big deal? This family coming over, the logistics don't work out. I don't know if I'll be able to light the Shabbat candles this week before Shabbat. Not a big deal. No one knows. The small little things that we can easily justify. And that's what Tanya says. But if you realize that these are not small little things, these are really a testament to our faith in God. If you're willing to die for God, are you not willing to overcome this little challenge? The Tanya says our souls do not want to be separated from God, even for a moment. Not for a moment to be separated from God. It's only a moment. But at that moment, we're separating ourselves from God. We don't want that. We always want to be motivated. The Tanya says we have to have that clarity, we have to have that vision, we have to have that motivation. Don't feel lazy, don't feel heavy. He gives us 3 examples. He gives us an example of Torah study, of prayer, and of charity. Where sometimes we kind of feel that we could kind of finagle things around a little bit, or to do it without zest, without fire, without passion, without enthusiasm. And Tanya says, no, clarity in life. You have that within you. You have that connection with God, and you know that every moment it counts. You don't have to develop anything new. You don't have to develop a new love for God. You have it within you. Just think about it. Just think about it for a moment. Remember, this is your parent. You automatically have a connection to this person. You know that you have it within you. Just understand that every moment is an important moment. Sometimes when we're focused, honing in on a very specific moment, we don't see the big picture. Think about parents, right? I'm a parent, as you saw. We had children here today. Some of the kids are home from camp. I'm not going to tell you my whole schedule. I will tell you that this morning I was up at 5 a.m. Why was I up at 5 a.m.? I don't really enjoy getting up at 5 a.m., to tell you the truth. I really, really don't enjoy getting up at 5 a.m. But I got three kids in my bed. This kid's crying. This kid wakes up from the cry, and this kid can't fall back asleep. This kid wants to sleep here, right? And there's a whole commotion of rearranging our beds at 5 a.m. Now, if you would stop me right then and there and say, Mendel, how are parenting going? Do you enjoy parenting? I may tell you, listen, I'm half sleeping. I'm kind of frustrated. I'm trying to get some sleep, and I got all these kids jumping all over me. There are moments in parenting where you think, whoa, this is so overwhelming. Did I sign up for this? But you take a step back, you say, wait, children, raising a family, raising a Jewish family, and you know, man, this is gold, right? There's nothing greater than this. Does it come with moments of frustration? The moments of difficulties? Of course. But let's not focus on that. That's okay. This is part of it. This is part of the package deal. And that's with life as well. Are there no moments where it feels a little difficult to do what's right, to follow in God's ways? Yeah, of course there are. Many of them. But if we have that clarity in life, what's my life worth? Why am I living? What am I willing to die for? So then I know what I'm living for. Then I know what I'm living for at every moment. I know that every little mitzvah, I enter a space connecting with the eternal truth. I connect to the pure and raw energy of God. And I know that my mitzvah is eternal. It has an everlasting effect. It never expires. One little mitzvah done now stays with me my entire life. You know, they say the story. There was a great Rebbe, one of the Gerer Rebbes from the Hasidic dynasties, and he had a driver who was a secular Jew. And the secular Jew, the driver, turned to this great Rebbe, the Hasidic Rebbe, and says, "Listen, I have a question for you. I'm a secular Jew. I'm a bad Jew. I'm a Jew who does not follow in God's ways. But I'm having a good life. I have a good job, I have a family. I'm enjoying myself. Why? Why am I not being punished by God?" And the Rebbe turns to him and says, "Tell me, do you know the Shema prayer?" "Oh, Shema prayer. Of course I know the Shema prayer. I grew up with this. The Shema Yisrael, of course we know it." "Have you recited the Shema prayer?" He says, "No, well, not recently, but yeah, many times in my youth." He says, "Okay, that's eternal. That's still with you. The mitzvahs that you have done, they have an everlasting effect. The fact that you've perhaps also done many opposite of mitzvahs or many sins, okay, but those are not everlasting, right? The mitzvah is everlasting." We have to strip down, uncover, remove many of the layers of our identity and know what is our true existence, what is our true identity, what is our true being. It's that neshama within us. And that neshama within us, sometimes, like you said, it's revealed in a crisis, but let's not wait for a crisis. Let's work on it at every moment. In the 1950s, the Rebbe, living in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, went to a wedding. A distant relative went to a wedding. And he spoke at the wedding. I think the wedding was on Hanukkah. Story of perseverance, self-sacrifice. And the Rebbe spoke about the importance of self-sacrifice, Mesiras Nefesh, giving up our life for Judaism. And there was someone in the crowd that came over to the Rebbe afterwards and says, "Tell me, we're living in America. We're just a few years after the Holocaust. Why talk about this? It brings us down. It makes us depressed. It's like negative. Talking about giving up your life after what happened to 6 million. We're living in America, thank God, with this freedom of religion. Why bring up this sore topic?" And the Rebbe says, precisely because we're in America, we have to speak about this. Today we're talking about America's independence. It seems that we have affluence, we have abundance, we have seemingly good materialistic lives, we have good religious lives. There's freedom of religion with all the shenanigans that's going on today. At the end of the day, we're able to go to shul, we're able to practice our religion. Great. It's not like it was perhaps, historically for the Jewish people. But now the Rebbe says specifically now, we have to speak about self-sacrifice. And interestingly, the Tanya says that there's a similar idea with Moshe and the Jewish people. Moshe, before he dies, talks to the Jewish people about going into Israel. And Moshe tells them that when you go into Israel, the other nations of the world are going to fear you. They're not going to persecute you. Your hand will always be on top. You'll have abundance. You'll have land. You'll have farms. You have fruit. You'll have flock. You have cattle. You have all that you need. It'll be a great life materialistically. And then Moshe tells them, I want you to recite the Shema every day, twice a day. And when you recite Shema, you are accepting upon yourself the yoke of heaven through Mesiras Nefesh, through giving up your life. You have to be willing, remind yourself that you are willing to give up your life for Judaism, for God. Wait, seems like an oxymoron. You're telling me we're going into a time, an era, we're going into Israel where we won't have to give up our life for Judaism. It's all going to be good, it's all going to be great. And then you're telling me, remind ourselves that we're willing to give up our life for God. How does that come together? If you told me that we're going now to 1930 Europe, and now you say, you know what? There'll come a time that you may have to give up your life for your Judaism. Okay, remind yourself of your ideals. Now it's going to be in abundance. And Tanya says, because on the contrary, when you're going to live life of abundance, you may drift away. You may forget why you are living. Remembering what it is you are willing to give up your life for gives you that clarity of who you truly are, what you're living for. And therefore, even when it's not about your life literally, but it's about making these small decisions between me, selfish me, and selfless me, that's really the decision that we have to make on a daily basis. That's going to help you. It's going to guide you to make those decisions. You're not going to have to die, but you're going to be able to live for God. And when we are reminded of what we are willing to die for God, that helps us live for God. And that's chapter 25. It kind of wraps up this idea that we began in chapter 18. We don't have to develop something new. It's close to you. Why is it close to you? Because it's within you. It's your nature. It's part of who you are. You're born with it. You just have to think about it and remind yourself that this is who I am. This is why I'm living. And every moment is really a moment between me and God, and make those real decisions. It's in our hands. It's easy. I want to conclude with the story, which I say these stories, they're really, really powerful stories. I often repeat because I think they're powerful. So if I repeat the story, my apologies. But I think it's a powerful story with Professor Green and the hot dog. Do you remember the story, Professor Green and the hot dog? So Professor Velvel Green, passed away a number of years ago. Later in his life, he moved to Beersheba, the southern city of Israel. But he was living in Minnesota, and he was a world-renowned scientist involved in NASA, and working with life. But he was a biologist working with life on Mars. I mean, he was really up there, a very profound, very prestigious professor in Minnesota. A Jewish person, obviously, right? Velvel Green, you can't get more Jewish than that, but not a very practicing, not a Jew very involved in Judaism. And the local rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Feller, may he live and be well, connected with him. Many, many stories of how he made that connection. But he was slowly, building this relationship with this Chabad rabbi, and he was slowly growing in his Judaism. He wasn't keeping kosher at this point. At this point, he wasn't keeping kosher, but he was involved in Judaism to a degree. And he tells his rabbi, Rabbi Feller, that he's going to be traveling. He had his itinerary. If you're traveling here, with a stop off over here, whatever, he had his itinerary. And Rabbi Feller says, you know what? Today in the airlines, this must be, I don't know, maybe the 60s. Today in the airlines, you could order kosher food. And also back then, it took an hour flight, you got a whole meal, right? You could order kosher food. So you know what? Why don't you order kosher food? It helps the airlines when they see more people are asking for it. maybe other people will also see, and they'll kind of spread the word. It's a win-win, right? It's good for everyone. Okay, no problem. So he gets on the plane and he orders his kosher meal. The moment people know him, he's a familiar face, and people see, oh, Professor Green is ordering kosher. Wow, okay, wow, interesting. Well, the students come back a few minutes later. I'm sorry, Professor Green, we don't have your kosher meal. Would you like to order something else? And his first initial reaction was, of course, yeah, I want to order something. I'm hungry. I want to eat something. But then he's thinking, wait, I mean, everyone just heard me order kosher. What's going to happen now? So kosher is not that important. It's only important if it works out conveniently. So he felt really guilty at that moment to order non-kosher. So he says, you know what? That's fine. I won't order anything today. But boy, was he mad. And who was he mad at? He was mad at Rabbi Feller. Why did I agree to this ridiculous request? Okay. So he lands at his destination. It was a late night flight. It was like 11:30 p.m. And he was hungry. All the vendors, all the stores, the restaurants were all closed. But there was one vendor. It was a hot dog stand selling hot dogs. And there was a line forming because everyone was, it was the only place open, and it was late at night. People wanted a late night snack. So he said, you know what? That's it. I'm going to eat my non-kosher hot dog. So he waits in line. And as he's waiting in line, he's getting more and more angry with himself, at Rabbi Feller. Why did I do this? This is ridiculous. I'm so hungry. It's so late at night. I don't have normal food, and I'm eating this hot dog. So he decides, before he purchases this hot dog, he is going to make a phone call. He goes to the payphone, and he calls Rabbi Feller. It's a night, 11:30 at night. Rabbi Feller answers, Professor Green, is everything okay? I mean, it's late at night. What's going on? I know you're traveling. He says, Rabbi Feller, I'm really angry at you. Let me tell you this. They didn't have kosher meal. I'm now standing in line at a non-kosher hot dog stand. And I want to let you know that I'm going to purchase a hot dog. Not just one hot dog. I'm going to purchase 2 hot dogs. And I'm going to eat it. And with every bite, I'm going to be thinking about Rabbi Feller. This is so ridiculous on me. I'm eating my hot dog, my non-kosher hot dog, just for you. Well, Rabbi Feller understands the situation well. And he says, okay, Dr. Green, in our discussions, you often ask me, why do we live? What's the purpose of life? You know what the answer is? The purpose of your life is that right now, you should not eat that hot dog. Rabbi Feller, I always knew you're a Meshuggah. Now I know you're doubly Meshuggah. And he hangs up the phone. And he gets in line to buy this hot dog. And he waits in line. And he is about to order the hot dog. And then he says, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to order that hot dog. And the way Dr. Green later told over the story, that since then, he only kept kosher. That was the breaking point for him to accept kosher. Why? Because there was a moment, it was a difficult moment. He was extremely hungry. He felt totally justified. He wasn't keeping kosher, right? He wasn't a kosher keeping Jew. He made this ridiculous commitment, and he realized that yes, exactly what Tanya says over here. Every little moment is a moment for itself. It's a standalone moment. It's a standalone moment between me and God. Between me and God. And we have the ability within us to overcome. Like we said, it's delusional. We convince ourselves that we can't. We convince ourselves that it's okay. But if we have the clarity in life, and the clarity comes from knowing what we're willing to die for, that's the clarity of who we truly are. If we have the clarity and apply it to every moment in life, that's how it's kikarev elecha hadavar moed. This is how it's so close to us. So that's the conclusion of chapter 25, which is really a conclusion of the first half of Tanya. Tanya so far is broken into 2 sections. Basically chapter 1 through 17 talks about how to develop this emotional relationship with God. Chapter 18 through 25 speaks about developing this innate relationship that we have with God already within us. And chapter 26 kind of begins a new topic, the topic of serving God with joy, with alacrity, with passion, how to overcome struggles and when we're feeling down, etc. That is chapter 26 for the next few chapters, which we'll begin at our next class. Quick announcement: next week we won't have class.
Tuesday.
To some conflicts over here, I won't be able to give class next week. So next week, which is July
9th.
11th.
Oh, 11th. I'm sorry. I'm
11th.
thinking.
We will not have class. Not to say you shouldn't study Torah Thursday morning, but we won't be able to be here together to study Tanya. So God willing, the following week we should be able to continue with our third section of Tanya. July 18th, we should continue with chapter 26. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Rabbi. I remember you did tell us the story, but it was more appropriate in light of this chapter of Tanya. It really hit it home more. Thank you.